I have some video to play for you that is so consequential and incredible that I don't even know exactly how to process it. It's that exciting. And before playing it, it's a clip of, surprisingly enough, given how I set that up, Anna Paulina Luna, an extreme MAGA Republican, on Matt Gaetz's podcast. But trust me, the potential consequences of what's discussed here is really positive news. And the context is that, as we've been talking about a lot, Marjorie Taylor Greene is attempting to oust Mike Johnson and is calling for his resignation, and currently has a motion to vacate the chair filed, but hasn't called it to a vote. So it's just sort of sitting dormant, but at any moment she could call it to a vote. And we've seen 2 Republican congresspeople join the ranks and voice their support for Marjorie Greene's motion to vacate, and are saying, we don't even want to have to do that, so just on your own cognizance, go ahead and resign Mike Johnson. And he's obviously saying he's not going to. It's looking more and more likely that they will call this to a vote eventually. They're upset with him for all the reasons we've been talking about before: funding of the government, of the DOJ, border policy, foreign aid package, a bunch of stuff. He's just not extreme enough for them. And a very stunning moment, but Anna Paulina Luna said that moderate Republicans, at least a couple, are considering doing something that could fundamentally change the next few months and rock the 2024 election in favor of Democrats. This is exciting stuff. Here it is.
So I'm just going to tell them.
Yeah.
So I heard that if and when the motion to vacate is introduced, that there will be immediate resignations of a couple of more moderate members of Congress. And in the event that that happens, that ultimately means it does go to a Democrat speaker. And so we're in a predicament.
A predicament, to say the least. And I'll show you a clip in just a second from a CNN interview with Anna Paulina Luna there as well. But first, just to clarify what she's saying, and keep in mind as I clarify this, that it does seem increasingly likely that this will be called to a vote. And what she just said was, it would just take it getting called to a vote. Not necessarily Mike Johnson actually being ousted, but a vote on that happening, because this motion to vacate is called to a vote. And that would cause, according to Anna Paulina Luna, who is a dishonest person, so she could be lying. That's an important caveat, but it would be a strange thing to lie about, that 2 moderate Republicans have promised that that would be what pushes them over the edge, and they would resign, which right now, the House majority is in favor of Republicans by 1 vote. So 2 Republicans resign, and Democrats now have the majority, and Hakeem Jeffries would be speaker. And that is unbelievable. We've been saying every time one of these Republicans resigned or George Santos was ousted that we're getting closer and closer to what seemingly couldn't happen, right? Which is this Republican Party in the House crumbles so much that Democrats are able to get the majority. And it's looking like it's more likely than ever that could happen. And that is absolutely unbelievable. And just to give you a sense of how plausible this is, Ken Buck, the Republican congressman, resigned for similar reasons, upset with the MAGA chaos, upset with this hardliner contingent that just wants attention, is just interested in stunts, not really governing and getting things done for people. And then after him, Mike Gallagher resigned. And Ken Buck said when he was resigning, there are a few others like me who are considering resigning, both because they just can't take it anymore with the disaster that their party is, and the inability to govern that their party exemplifies, and also to sort of make a point about that, right? To show we can't, this is so aggravating and we can't operate within this. So we want to show you, even if it hurts our party, how upset this makes us. And so if Anna Paulina Luna is revealing accurate information, and Matt Gaetz was nodding along, so 2 dishonest people saying something's true, does that make it any more likely? I don't know. 2 negatives make a positive. But this is humongous, because electorally, I can tell you, the American people seeing the Republican chaos getting so bad that they forfeit their own majority, that they push out enough of their own, that they give the majority to Democrats, and then Democrats could have a few months of governing seriously and reminding people of the contrast, getting things done, having the House, Senate, and of course Biden, the White House, to show in the final months before this election what it looks like when adults are in charge, like we saw the first 2 years of Biden's presidency. That could be a game changer. And the idea that the House Republican caucus has been so consumed by Trumpism, which embodies, again, this dedication to the cult of personality, to getting on Fox News, to owning the libs, but does not dedicate itself to governing and getting things done for people. And that this chaos could lead to Republicans giving Democrats the majority. That's unprecedented. That's pretty incredible. Okay, moving to this, while we're on the subject of Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. She appeared on CNN recently and pushed falsehoods about Ukraine. That's a big part of the conversation, getting aid to Ukraine, and many MAGA Republicans are against it.
Tell you is currently right now with the Ukraine, while we are sending money over there, there's no accountability.
By the way, it's Ukraine.
But I think even furthermore, remember, Ukraine chose to not join NATO. They also, in addition to that, had decisions that they made early on that would basically enable them to support what we're doing here in the United States as far as fighting that, and they chose not to. So again, it is not our fight to fight. We've given them a ton of aid. We've given them so much aid that we could have funded a second Marine Corps. I think that if you go into what's happening right now with the inflation that we're seeing in this country, in addition to, let's take student loans, for example, and yet we're funding a foreign government. I simply don't agree with that.
Look, it was NATO and the United States and others who didn't want Ukraine to enter back when it was an issue initially.
I'm going to have to respectfully push back on that because I disagree. But continue. Sorry.
You know what? I appreciate that very much. If
sort of a strange interaction, but she's being really dishonest. I appreciate the politeness, but she's also being very vile in the talking point she's pushing. So to clarify, Ukraine has wanted to join NATO. It's NATO, and as a CNN host pointed out, the United States included, who's resisted that because of Russia being so against it. And then right before Russia invaded, Ukraine made clear, hey, it's obvious NATO isn't ready for us, so we're not going to be joining NATO anytime soon. And then Russia still invaded, which is important to point out because a lot of the same people pushing nonsense like that are pushing the idea that, well, Ukraine sort of incited Russia into doing this by trying to be so cozy with the West, which they have the right to do that. So they couldn't join NATO and Russia would have no right to invade them. So regardless, it's absurd, but they'll push that idea that the United States and Ukraine, they actually forced Russia into invading because they were saying that Ukraine was going to be in NATO, when in reality, NATO wasn't yet comfortable with that. Ukraine made clear, looks like it's not happening anytime soon. Then Russia invaded. So that's a dishonest talking point, but also contradictory, right? Because she's acting like if Ukraine had joined NATO earlier, then she wouldn't be willing to blame the victim in this situation, which is what she's doing, right? She's saying, well, Ukraine could have joined NATO earlier, so the fact that they didn't means they deserve to be invaded and their citizens slaughtered by Russia. We shouldn't have helped them. I don't know. Which is, again, disgusting, but also contradictory. How can you both say Ukraine should have joined NATO earlier and that could have prevented this? So the fact that they didn't makes it to where, we shouldn't really care about it. And also, Ukraine talking about joining NATO is one of the things that justifies Russia wanting to invade them. Crazy logic, very incoherent. And then at the end, she says, we have student loans, but then we're giving money to a foreign government. I talked about this on the bonus show recently. So often you hear the very same people say, we can't help, in this case, Ukraine, defend themselves, which, by the way, as I've talked about, even if you're just looking from the United States perspective, there are a bunch of reasons that's geopolitically in our national security interest. But they'll say we can't give money to Ukraine because we have problems at home, like student loans. Who's preventing us from doing more about student loans? The people saying that we can't do something for Ukraine because there's student loans, or homelessness, or poverty, or food insecurity, or whatever it is. they'll cite these issues that we have as a reason that we can't give money to Ukraine. And then they're the ones blocking us from also doing something on those issues. And then just to round it all out, remember, it's the same people who keep advocating for tax cuts for the wealthy. Apparently, we have so much money, we don't need any more funds, that they're willing to give even more wealth to those who already have plenty, instead of investing that money in programs to benefit Americans. But then they cite the fact that programs aren't being properly invested in as a reason to not support Ukraine. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments.